Welcome back to Extra Literary Affairs, a podcast for the lit curious reader, because why not read a little bit of everything? I'm Jennifer Smith.
And I'm Joey Kelly.
And today we are looking back on what we read and discussed in February to celebrate Black History Month. So, Joey, looking at the titles we read in February, I was really struck by the switch up we did on ourselves. We read a short story, a poetry collection, an essay, and a novel. And for people who have experienced our podcast before, you know that that is not always our jam. And I have really enjoyed branching out. Joey, what was your feeling on the assortment of things we read this month?
I liked mixing it up so that we're not just reading short stories. We usually end the month with a novel. It requires more effort on our part to read poetry and nonfiction. Well, more so nonfiction because there's a little bit more research that goes into it. I mean, we could research anything, really. We do. But with nonfiction, it requires just that extra level of effort. We could get away with just interpreting short stories and novels, and they would still be fine. But with nonfiction, there's not really much to interpret. It's understanding in a different ways. And then with the poetry that we read from Felon, the redaction poetry, it wasn't typical poetry, so it also required more context. There's more research this month.
I would agree with that, Joey. I appreciated the fact that we read nonfiction, we read an essay, because as you said, you really have to understand the broader context. We leave a lot of things open to interpretation when you're reading a piece of literature, a short story, a novel. Your imagination can run wild. And I think the constraints of having a nonfiction piece to interact with was really helpful. To review, for those of you who perhaps haven't heard what we've done in February, we kicked off with Langston Hughes's short story, Slice Them Down, from 1936 in the Esquire magazine. We then explored 4 poems from Reginald Dwayne Betts from his poetry collection called Felon, which was published in 2019. We switched gears to Audre Lorde's essay, The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House, which was published in 1979. And we wrapped up the month with Clay Cane's 2026 novel, Burn Down Master's House. In recapping the types of things we read and the various timeframes, Joey, you did a great job of balancing out modern stuff with historical, with things that we normally are not touching on, like a collection of poetry. So I was very excited about that. Joey, in thinking about the things we read, is there something that stands out to you as a particular favorite? And if so, what is it and why?
I feel like I really like all of them, of course. I can't really say Audre Lorde because how many times can I say that I absolutely love her? So today is Audre Lorde's birthday and Toni Morrison. They're born on the same day, but 3 years apart. Toni Morrison was 3 years older than Audre Lorde. So happy birthday to Toni Morrison and Audre Lorde. Thank you so much for your contribution.
One more reason to celebrate.
Yes, that's true. Okay, that didn't answer your question. That was not on topic there. But my favorite thing, I guess I'll have to say, because I had to pick one, Burn Down Master's House by Clay Cane. I've seen a lot of people talking about it now on social media. I mean, we're starting to talk about it before. Obviously, it's a new release. He's not typically a fiction writer. I haven't read the other works that he has published, but I know The Grift is nonfiction, so this might be his first fiction, or it's his first most well-known fiction, so I'm glad that a lot of people are reading it and enjoying it. What about you?
I'm not going to go with that one as my favorite. I'm going to go with that one as my most challenging read. And Joey, I was chuckling when I asked you the question, what's your favorite? You defaulted to the Jennifer answer of, I love them all for various reasons. I can completely relate to that. For me, the redaction poems were the most fun portion of our conversation. I brought back a lot of happy memories of me doing redaction poems, and I was very compelled by Betts's story of how he started his life and moved through the prison system, how he navigated the prison system, came out, completely rehabilitated his life, and moved in this wonderfully creative direction. So that was very inspiring to me. My unexpected challenge that I did not see coming, Joey, was Burn Down Master's House. As I mentioned in our last episode, was so excited to read the historical introduction from the author. This is going to be right in my wheelhouse. This is going to be so great. And I think the content, the difficulty with the physical things that happened to people that were unpleasant was a bit of a distraction for me. But in the end, I'm really glad that we read it. So thank you for bringing that to us. Any disappointment?
I don't know that I had one that I felt challenged me in that same way. I think they all challenged me as a reader and as a person in different ways, which is the cop out of an answer, I guess. But I think it's just important to read all of these authors and these works that we were discussing for various reasons. They're all super prescient right now, and hopefully they won't forever be super topical. Eventually these will be like, oh, remember when we really needed feminism because women didn't have equal rights or bodily autonomy? Be like, hilarious. Remember that? I mean, it won't be funny, but it'll be like, remember a time?
Yeah, can you believe that
Yeah.
happened? That's how they lived. Yes, I am very much looking forward to the future when we can look back on that and be like, what were they thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I think we do get a sense of that when we read stories like Burn Down Master's House, because obviously it has to do with slavery, where you read it and you're like, I logically understand that this is what happened, but emotionally you're like, I just cannot understand it. Even though slavery is not happening right now in the United States, it is still topical because I think we can see a lot of horrible circumstances that are happening around the world, and people compare them to different parts of history, especially World War II right now. And when people look back at World War II, they inevitably think that, oh no, I could not have lived through that and have stayed silent. And I think it's a good reminder to be more mindful and to learn more about history so that you can understand what were the circumstances and how do you avoid falling into that same thing, because people were quiet and silent during World War II, of course. And it's okay to criticize that, but take a look at what they did and why they did it so that you don't have to repeat those same mistakes.
Yeah, Joe, I appreciate you say, let's learn from the past. That is one of the best uses, I think, of our time is to celebrate the things we got right as a country. We've done a lot of really great things,
Yeah.
but I'll speak for myself. I don't feel like I'm in a very hopeful phase for America right in this exact moment. And Joey, I was inspired because we read the short story from Langston Hughes, and he is also, as we have spoken before, a beautiful poet. So I wanted to just read two stanzas of Langston Hughes, a poem that was really speaking to me in these times. And for those of us in the United States, we just celebrated or acknowledged President's Day. So it is very top of mind. What is America?
Yeah.
Who should be
That's a
doing
better
this?
way of.
Yeah, what is America? Who should be running this? Langston Hughes, can you give me some guidance here? Just help me out. So we are going to read just a very short clip of Langston Hughes's poem, Let America Be America Again. And it's a much longer poem. This is readily available on the internet. Please look it up and read the full content. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be the great strong land of love, where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. I just love thinking about what's America, who's it for, what's it about, what do we share, what don't we share. I just was really moved by that.
Langston Hughes, just always a solid recommendation. Just read it, pick up literally anything that he ever wrote. It's always going to be very good. I have to read the rest of that poem. I haven't read that one before. I feel like I've heard of it. All of his stuff is pretty famous, but that sounds familiar.
And then, Joey, I had one more because I think if you ask the average American person, name an African American poet off the top of your head, walking down the street, in line at Starbucks, tap on the shoulder, ask, hey, do you know any African American poets? I believe that the answer most likely will be Maya Angelou. There is a very famous poem from Maya that I'd like to just read two stanzas from. Go read the rest of the poem yourself. This is a little appetizer for people who may want to spend some time reflecting on poetry because we've had so much fun with that. Many of you have already heard this. This is called Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. And Joy, it just goes on to the rest of this really beautiful poem, inspiring us that it does not matter what other people are deciding for you. You get to choose your own adventure in the way in which you want to radiate your joy to other people. And she's always a comfort to me.
Yeah, she's an excellent poet, obviously. And her prose is very lyrical as well, just like Langston Hughes. They're both poets and they both wrote in prose as well. So I would highly recommend Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. It's fantastic. It's a memoir, so it's not fiction, but it's still really good, obviously.
So, Joey, that takes me back to something that we haven't talked about yet. Some of my favorite moments on the podcast from the last month. And one of the things that you mentioned, and I was like wholeheartedly agreeing on, is that we tend to really enjoy writers who are also poets. And I was listening to one of our episodes yesterday with my partner, and that just really popped out to me that you said it's not exclusively like other people who don't do poetry can still be amazing writers, but somehow we seem to land and really resonate with poetic writers. And I really want to spend a little bit more time in 2026 exploring various writers who are also poets and compare how their writing style and their poetry style mirror each other.
That would be a good theme for a month, to read one of their poems and one of their short stories. That's a good idea. I love a poet who writes in prose. I always do. They can bring something different. Again, it's not in a negative way. It's not trying to diminish somebody else's writing that's not a poet, but yeah, just something different about them.
Joey, in thinking about the characters and the scenes, we've explored a lot of different eras in the month of February. Is there one particular scene or character that just keeps coming up in your thoughts this month?
I guess I would have to say what I said in our last episode about Burn Down Master's House, which I said is my favorite moment in the story, which is when Solomon reunites with Luke and has this moment of joy. Well, what I said, I'm pretty sure should be joy if it wasn't supposed to be. And relief. He has a moment to breathe and be like, okay, I can see hope ahead. It's right there. It's in the shape of Luke, this person who knows my history. So if nothing else, read that book for that moment. I think it's fantastic. But what about you?
So I keep coming back to Slice 'em Down because, as we had noted, there was an original ending that Langston Hughes created on his first run through his story. And then there's the Disney version. There was an upbeat ending that he was told to write a different ending. And I keep thinking about, and I know it's going to sound a little funny coming from me, that I preferred the original version where it was just abrupt. They stabbed each other simultaneously and dropped down dead. And to me, that was like a mic drop from Langston Hughes. He was like, you see these beautiful men struck down over nonsense by each other to make other people happy. The crowd wanted a fight. They made the conditions available for them to do that. So it was just such an interesting thing for me to think about. I liked that ending, but I also could find the humor in, as you reminded me, both of the men, Sling and Terry, after the fight, they both passed out. They were just like freaked out, so they passed out. That's also interesting. And the slow unwinding of all of their clothing, and it's like, take off one layer, take off another layer, all of this. That felt very playful and a bit of relief in that story because there were so many heavy, heavy topics going on that I think right now for me, I am looking for some levity, some fun. This woman, Charlie May, just keeps popping into my head because she's so over the top. She's really her own thing. Powdered her nose, came out like, hey guys, what's next? And they're like, hit the bricks, lady. Women, we're done. We are so done with you. And she's like, okay, I guess I'll see you around. And off she goes. And because she was described as 3/4 cat, he was letting us know this woman, she is going to figure it out. She will be on to the next thing before you can blink an eye. So don't you worry about Charlie May because she is going to be just fine. And I just really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's another great story by Langston Hughes. I mean, again, that'll be us on repeat. Every time we read something from Langston Hughes, it's always going to be a good one.
Yeah, no misses, all hits, no misses. Yeah. Next month, we're going to be on this journey of grief. And yeah, no laughter here, more grief.
Hopefully, there will be some funny moments.
I'm hopeful, Joey. So, is there anything in particular about next month's selections that has piqued your interest or that you're especially curious about?
I'm most excited to read The Feather Pillow because the author is from Uruguay, which is a country I don't even think I've ever read any literature from. And he's known as the Edgar Allan Poe of Uruguay. And so I'm very excited to discuss that. I have read the story already, and I've read one of his other stories called The Decapitated Chicken, which we will not be reading. If you read it, you probably figure out why I don't want to read that on here. But I do see a lot of parallels with Edgar Allan Poe. It's not exact, obviously. He has his own way of writing. I think it's because it's very gothic, obviously, and that's sort of why. It's not a detective, I could tell you that. And there's some supernatural elements, not to spoil it. I thought, oh, maybe this doesn't fit because there's supernatural horrific elements in it. But I think this is a good opportunity to discuss how horror and the supernatural, fantastical elements are used as metaphor to discuss grief and death. Do you have one that you were like, oh, that sounds really interesting, and I can't wait to read that?
Well, now, of course, because you've talked about The Feather Pillow, I'm all in. So I can't wait for next week for us to read and discuss that. I'm also really looking forward to reading George Saunders' novel that just came out called Vigil. I know that it has received mixed reviews, and I'm curious to find out for myself how that goes down. But what I am really curious about, Joey, and I got really excited about when you pitched this idea, I love the idea that we're going to have a piece of poetry in each one of our episodes. So that is something that hopefully will be a delightful experience. I don't think we've ever read a poem that we're like, I don't get it. So I'm very much looking forward to enjoying some poetry and kind of putting us in that more evocative space to kick off the episode.
Yeah, I'm excited. I double up on Puerto Rico because my inspiration was Bad Bunny, and so I was like, well, I got to do it. There's got to be more representation for Puerto Rico because obviously Bad Bunny is from Puerto Rico. So we're going to have to read a little bit more from them. I think it's going to be interesting to hear and discuss how different people from different parts of the Americas think about grief and how, as a writer and a creative person, they're trying to discuss it and what they're trying to evoke in us as the reader to get to understand. Are there going to be cultural markers in here that's going to be very significant for someone that's in Argentina or in Uruguay or in Martinique or Haiti or whatever? You'll see when we get to those stories. And how does that compare? Obviously, we're both from the United States, so we're most familiar with customs and traditions around death in the United States. So it'll be interesting to see what's different and what is very similar.
Yeah, Joey, I do appreciate you calling out what's universal in the death experience and what is culturally very different. I do know that in Mexico, they do the Day of the Dead celebration and they have these more celebration type things to honor their dead that I do not feel that I've had exposure to that here in the US in my culture. I wanted to ask you, Joey, is there anything else that you're reading adjacent to the things that we discussed in February that are really capturing your attention right now?
I think I talked a lot about all the stuff that I've been reading recently. It was a lot of nonfiction things that I had been reading. They were touching on things that we ended up talking about. And I was like, well, this worked out. I am reading currently Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, which is right here. And I'm only like 60 pages in. I had started reading it last year and put it down, and I have no idea why I did that. It's not like I didn't enjoy it. I'm rereading the part that I don't remember where I got up to, but I'm like, this is fantastic. I don't know why. I must have gotten distracted or something, which is very odd for me. Usually I will finish a book where I'll just decide, I don't want to read this anymore, and so I'll just stop doing that. But I can't remember why I didn't do it. And it's interesting. You had referenced that chapter one, it has to do with the battle royale part. And you had brought that up in Slice Him Down by Langston Hughes. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to read that chapter and discuss the similarities and what makes it so different, because there is a big difference in those two scenes, the bar scene in Slice Him Down, and then this very organized and orchestrated battle royale from Invisible Man. I wish I could remember. Why would I put this down? It's so well written. But other than that, I want to read next, and I happen to have it. It's called Hours by Philip B. Williams. And I really don't care about book covers, but this is a beautiful book cover. The colors are very vibrant, and it's just very appealing looking. I don't really know what's it about.
How did it come into your life, Joey? Why is that there?
I don't really remember why I bought it, but I must have saw it at a bookstore, and I must have been attracted to this cover and was like, this looks really interesting. I think it's fantastical. Maybe if it's magical realism, I don't know, but it sounds interesting. So I'm going to read that next. And then The Sellout by Paul Beatty, who I've never read from.
I love that. I love
read that one?
book. Read it a long time ago, like when it first came out. It's so good.
It won the Booker and the National Book Critics Circle Award in Fiction, and it was named one of the best books by New York Times Review and the Wall Street Journal. And I've heard so many good things about this author, Paul Beatty, and this book specifically, and he has a bunch of books. I don't know why I've never read from it, but we're going to do it now. Well, I'm going to do it.
I'm glad you're doing it, Joey. As soon as you finish The Sellout, I want to hop right on here and talk about it, because there is so much topically tied to what we discussed in this month that I think you're going to be like, why did it take me so long to get to this book? I appreciate Invisible Man just reappearing in your life. I love reconnecting with books. I just recently rehoused some of my books behind me, and I have all of these bookmarks in various books, and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to reunite with my friends in here. Where have you been? So yes, I'm very excited, Joey. So you're like, well, so what are you going to read? I'm like, I don't know. I'm literally going to just reach behind me and grab one and be like, hey, old friend. I do have some news about something that I am working on for the next 8 to 10 weeks. I'm excited about that. I am participating in a group that will be discussing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and her husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley. We will be reading some of his poetry and also a theatrical play that he made that sort of echoes the things that Mary Shelley was talking about in Frankenstein. So I'm really excited to be on that tangent at this moment. Joey, we have been in some deep, dark, sad times in life and in literature. So maybe in April, let's put our thinking caps on. I would love to hear from the audience. What would be an amazing pivot to bring some levity and joy into our daily reading habits? Because it's been pretty heavy.
I feel like I really read a lot of sad books, to be fair. If someone comes to my house because I have a lot of books, they'd be like, oh, do you have anything that's like happy or a good time? I'm like, oh, maybe. Oh, wait, no, this one. No, that's not this one. What about the? Oh, no, okay, not that one. So I just read a lot of sad books. So yeah, I don't know if we're going to read for April, but maybe that will be our theme, is just happily ever after. It would be interesting as well, because I feel like there is some discourse about, are those types of stories or books that are like all happy endings, are they worthy of scholarship, or are they sort of just entertainment only?
I have a question, Joey. Jane Austen, isn't there some happy endings in the end of some of those books?
Yeah, they all end in happy endings.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's true. There's like turmoil within them, of course, as any other romance would really have. They have to court each other, then they have to have a nice period, then they have a breakup, and then they come back together. I think Sense and Sensibility, which also came up in Burn Down Master's House, Clara teaches Charity how to read using Sense and Sensibility. And there's parts of that story that sort of mirror what's happening with Clara and in the Dashwoods. But anyway, that one I feel like is the sort of saddest one to me. Maybe Mansfield Park. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Jane Austen.
Well, I am intrigued, Joey, and I'm so glad that you mentioned all the things we didn't get to in our conversations of Burn Down Master's House. And I loved that she was given the book Sense and Sensibility by Clara, who was the white woman who had rented her services out and became the mechanism in which she could gain her freedom. And then when Charity was taken away from her husband because of a bad court ruling, right? He had to give her up. She had asked him to read Sense and Sensibility a bunch of times, and he never did. So after she was gone, he picked up the book and he saw Clara's name and address in it and was able to reconnect with her to then aid in the freeing of Charity. And I just really loved that whole plot line that Clay Kane decided to put in there. It was very hopeful and makes me want to read Sense and Sensibility all by myself and figure out why he may have chose that particular novel to highlight.
That's my favorite Jane Austen one to this day. It's my top one. I love it so much. And the adaptation with Kate Winslet and Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman, there's a lot of good people in it. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend it. Actually, Jane Austen books right up here, along with the Brontes.
All your sisters are hanging together.
Yeah, even though I don't think the Brontes liked Jane Austen. I'm pretty sure they were like, she's garbage. Don't read her. Read our stuff. But yeah, read Sense and Sensibility. It's great. I feel like it's her most realistic one for me. Or whatever. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Jane Austen, as I said. Just read it. Have a great time.
Speaking of reading it and having a great time, Joey, I'll just say one more thing about the Bronte sisters. I don't know if you've heard, but Wuthering Heights is out. The new film adaptation. So I will be revisiting Wuthering Heights just to see how it compares to the new rendition.
Oh man, it's getting torn apart, that movie. Emerald Fennell, I think is the director's name. I'm not trying to throw shade at her, but she cast Jacob Elordi, who is Frankenstein in the new Guillermo del Toro adaptation, and he's white, and Heathcliff is certainly not white. It's very explicit that he's just not white.
It's not.
There's a lot of disappointment in that she decided to go with the tradition of cinema and whitewash the story when you remove so much of that story by doing that. But there you go. Well, read it. Read Wuthering Heights because it's fantastic. It's sad, and it's certainly not a romance. I could tell you that. If no one's ever read it and you're listening, it's not a romance.
Yeah. The good news is, Joey, that I can obviously always laugh at myself because it's very hard to say, you know what I loved about the pandemic? A lot of things I loved about the pandemic. I'm glad it's over, but there were some highlights. And one of the highlights was watching Jane Eyre on stage at the National Theatre out of the UK. And because I'm always so good keeping all my authors and all my books straight, I was like, oh, right, forget about Wuthering Heights. I really am just curious about Jane Eyre. So that's going to be the next thing that I read. Joey, I'm going to read Jane Eyre because I just really enjoyed the live theater performance. Yeah, it was so well done.
It's good. That's the chunkiest one back here. It's this dark blue one. Jane Eyre is really good. It's a great book.
I have read it and I have seen it, but it has been a while. So I think revisiting the classics is something that I want to encourage myself to do. And I know, Joey, sometimes you will occasionally reread a book to re-experience it. I obviously have read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, her 1818 version. I'm really looking forward to the slow buildup of reading this in a group setting. I'm sure I'll be gushing about how awesome that is and force us to read it before Halloween. Yeah, something to look forward to.
I love Frankenstein, so I'm not mad about it.
Awesome. Okay, Joey, I think this is a great place for us to end our wrap up of February. We did, I think, a great job of representing Black History Month by exploring these beautiful pieces of literature of all types in our conversation. So looking forward to March. We're marching right into grief. Yay.
Oh my God. Yeah, definitely for April. Happiness and joy only. It's only going to be those things. That's it.
Sounds great. All right. See you then.